Greetings, friends, and a calm and peaceful welcome to Captain Samuel's Electric Leisure Dome. Today we'll be getting good at Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on Game Gear. This game is frequently criticized as being too difficult, but we can't control whether or not Sonic 2 is difficult. What we can control is our attitude towards this game. Therefore, to get good at Sonic 2, the first thing we need to do is, if you have a sitting meditation practice, sit in Zazen for at least 5 minutes. And then meditate upon this Zen koan, the taste of Banzo's sword. Matajiro Yagyu was the son of a famous swordsman. His father, believing that his son's work was too mediocre to anticipate mastership, disowned him. So Matajiro went to Mount Futara and there found the famous swordsman Banzo. But Banzo confirmed the father's judgment. "You wish to learn swordsmanship under my guidance?" asked Banzo. "You cannot fulfill the requirements." "But if I work hard, how many years will it take me to become a master?" persisted the youth. "The rest of your life," replied Banzo. "I cannot wait that long," explained Matajiro. "I am willing to pass through any hardship if only you will teach me. If I become your devoted servant, how long might it be?" "Oh, maybe 10 years, Banzo relented. "My father is getting old, and soon I must take care of him," continued Matajiro. "If I work far more intensively, how long would it take me?" "Oh, maybe 30 years, said Banzo. "Why is that?" asked Matajiro. "First you say 10 and now 30 years. I will undergo any hardship to master this art in the shortest time." "Well," said Banzo, "in that case you will have to remain with me for 70 years. A man in such a hurry as you are to get results seldom learns quickly." "Very well," declared the youth, understanding at last that he was being rebuked for impatience. "I agree." Matajiro was told never to speak of fencing and never to touch a sword. He cooked for his master, washed the dishes, made his bed, cleaned the yard, cared for the garden, all without a word of swordsmanship. 3 years passed. Still Matajiro labored on. Thinking of his future, he was sad. He had not even begun to learn the art to which he had devoted his life. But one day Banzo crept up behind him and gave him a terrific blow with a wooden sword. The following day, when Matajiro was cooking rice, Banzo again sprang upon him unexpectedly. After that, day and night, Matajiro had to defend himself from unexpected thrusts. Not a moment passed in any day that he did not have to think of the taste of Banzo's sword. He learned so rapidly he brought smiles to the face of his master. Matajiro became the greatest swordsman in the land. There you go. Meditate upon that Zen koan and bring what you have learned to your experience playing Sonic 2. And that is the first step to getting good at it. So this is recorded game footage of me playing through Sonic 2. And it is unedited footage. It includes me losing lives and mistakes. And I think that's important to include because Sonic 2 doesn't require perfection. It requires patience. And it requires breaking free of your attachment to outcomes. There are a lot of really difficult parts where you can't see what's coming. And you have to know where you need to be ahead of time. And so there's a lot of opportunities to lose lives in this game. Don't get frustrated, Just keep it chill and you'll be okay. So here's Underground Zone Act 1. Basically, you can pick up an extra life or two if you're able to collect enough rings and stay on the top of the level. I get hit by spikes here and lose my rings, and so I don't think that I quite get enough to get the extra life. But if you avoid getting hit there, you'll be able to get 100 rings. There's a secret life up there. And then as you make your way through the level, if you stay on top, all the way to the right, there's going to be an extra life. There's a trick to navigating the springs in this game. If you come down at the spring from an angle, you can leave the spring at the opposite angle, and therefore you'll be able to go a bit further. The game also places rings above springs so that you can see that there's a spring underneath. So that's one visual cue that the game gives you to try to make up for the fact that the resolution of this game is pretty poor, and oftentimes it's just Sonic on screen and nothing else. So you can see there, if you do that part with the springs correctly, you can pick up another extra life there. And then over here to the left, there's more rings above all these springs. There you go, that's first level. Now with the second act coming up here, you've got to stay on top of the act in order to get the Chaos Emerald. If you fall down from the upper tier of Act 2 of Underground Zone, there's no way to get back up. So you have to let Sonic lose a life and restart the act. Because you got to get the Chaos Emeralds if you want the good ending. So you want to jump out right about here. That's the trickiest part of this, really, I think, is jumping out of that go-kart and getting the minecart. Jumping out of that minecart and getting the timing just right. And then for this part here, you want to be a little bit past where the ring monitor was. If you're too far back, you'll really overshoot that. I overshot it there, but I was able to correct by jumping and getting back. But if you start that spin jump too far back, you'll overshoot and you won't have a chance to recover. And there you go, all the way to the right of the act on top is the first Chaos Emerald. The boss of the first act is especially difficult on Game Gear because of the cramped screen resolution. You can't see the balls that the boss launches at you until they're pretty much right on top of you. And in the Master System version of this game, the balls are always, they bounce lower to the ground, whereas in this game it's randomized and sometimes they bounce much higher, and the higher ones are particularly tricky to avoid. So when I was a kid, I would actually pretend that I beat the game by completing the second act, because this boss was just so hard. But as I mentioned in my review of the game, I had nothing else to play. This was it. And so I just stuck with it. And then one day, I was just astonished that, wow, I actually beat the first boss in Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And it was my first great accomplishment as a gamer. I felt really proud. And even though this game is incredibly difficult, it was really my first experience of the satisfaction and pleasure that comes with beating a difficult game. Now, also, if you beat the boss in time, you can have Sonic headbang along to the music there. That's important. You definitely want to get that, and don't skip that. It's important to headbang at the end of each boss. Just trust me on that. Sky High Zone is an easier act compared to the first level. As I mentioned as a kid, I was astonished that I finally beat that first level's boss. And while there's certainly other challenging parts to this game, I think that first boss is definitely one of the major difficulty hurdles to completing this game. And I was pleasantly surprised by how doable and fair Act 2 is, particularly the Act 2 boss, is much easier than the first Act's boss. What makes Act 2 so difficult, though, as we'll see, what makes the second level so difficult, as we'll see, is getting the second Chaos Emerald. That's tricky to do, but I'll show you how to do it. This is fun. If you bounce all the way to the left and then jump over this, there's these little birds that will pop out of the trees if you have Sonic run against the monitor. I really love that little secret. I think that's so cool. And I've often wondered, are there other little secrets like that in this game? If you know of any, please let me know in the comments section. And I say that not because I'm just trying to get comments, but because I really am curious. Are there any other animals in this game that might pop out if you press against the monitors? I love those little secrets like that. It's cool to discover that kind of stuff. Hang gliders take a while to get used to. The main trick is when you get the hang glider, don't press button 1 or 2. That makes you fall off. And when I was learning to do that, I would get on the hang glider, press button 1 or 2, and immediately fall off and get frustrated with them. But basically, if you tap left on the D-pad, that will make Sonic go up a bit, and if you tap right, that will make Sonic go down. And you generally want to just keep tapping left to help him gain altitude. Now this hang glider here, for the longest time, I thought was how you got the Chaos Emerald on this level, and I tried so many times as a kid to try to fly that hang glider all the way over to where the Chaos Emerald is. And it may be possible. I got close a couple times, but eventually I gave up on that because it wasn't working and tried some other strategies. And the strategy that works for me today is you have to navigate this network of invisible springs in the clouds to get the Chaos Emerald. So to my right here, there's going to be another invisible cloud that's to the right and below. And then there's a spring in that smaller cloud right there. And you want to use the trick of coming down in that at an angle. And if you fall down, that's okay. You just bounce back up, like so, and try it again. What I'm aiming for is a formation of 3 clouds on the right that are all in a line. And the leftmost cloud, directly below that, is another spring. And once you hit that, you want to come in at another angle, and you'll be able to come up and get the Chaos Emeralds. You'll see, I'm trying to line up with that cloud on the left. See, there I am lined up with the cloud on the left. The first time you do it, that Badnik appears and will shoot a laser ball at you. You can dodge that. I was able to dodge it okay, but then I wasn't able to reconnect the spring. But the second time, that Badnik will be gone. So here we are, we're coming down at that spring at the angle, and you get it just right, there you go. You get the yellow Chaos Emerald at the very top of the map. After that, you just fly the hang glider all the way to the right to end the level. If you want to, on the far left bottom portion of this level, there is an extra life. For me, I'm just happy to have gotten the Chaos Emerald and move on with the game. And if you're good, you can fly the hang glider right into the bonus panel. You can do that on the first act of this level as well. Didn't quite get it there, but that's a fun trick. I like to hit the bonus panel with the hang glider if I can. Okay, Act 3. So, this boss is far more forgiving than the first boss, but there certainly is a trick to it. Those little baby robot chicks that you'll see me fight here, there's no rings, and so if you connect with one of them, you'll lose a life and start over. And they move in kind of an erratic pattern, and the biggest threat I find is I'm trying to roll through all of them on the ground, and I run out of momentum. Sonic stands up out of his protective spin and then gets hit by one of the baby chicks. Down below, you want to make sure that you've gotten rid of all of the chicks just before you get rid of the eggs, because if you get rid of all the eggs, that triggers the giant bird to come out, and you don't want to fight her and have one of the baby chicks or more left on screen, because as you can see, when you connect with the mother bird, Sonic becomes extremely bouncy for whatever reason. His physics seem to change he really gets flung across the screen, and you've got to time it just right so that you don't get ricocheted back into the fireball that the mother bird launches. So here again you can see me headbang. That's very important. Don't forget that. Trust me on that. It is essential to your success at this game. Now we've got Aqua Lake Zone. I love the music to this zone. It is so good. Energetic, upbeat. I love it. I just stop here for a minute and headbang for a bit. That's great. Love this zone and its music. For the first act here, I don't go underwater except to get the bonus panel at the end. I'm not really sure what's under there. Probably some extra lives, I imagine. I suppose I could go back and explore. I just remember as a kid not really finding it worthwhile to go under there, especially because it's just so hard to navigate underwater. I don't really enjoy the underwater segments of Sonic games, including this one, and so if you don't have to go into the water, my opinion is, why would you then? And there's plenty of extra lives up top, so you can get an extra life here, you can get an extra life by collecting sufficient rings. And if you skim across the surface of this second lake here, there is an extra life hidden behind one of these columns. So you can see right there on the right, I just got it. And then you have to fall down under the water. And underwater all the way to the right is where you'll find the bonus panel. There is a spear that first launches up. That can be a little tricky to dodge, and you can get flung all the way to the left of the pit. If you die there, it's not a big deal. The lives in Sonic 2, fortunately, respawn when you die, and so if you pick up more than one life and then die, you can actually turn a profit on lives. And so if you get all those lives, get flung to the left and then die, no big deal, you just get more lives. So here on the right, the floor has an invisible hole. You can jump over that. I actually prefer to fall through it, hold down there, and then you can come all the way to the left, pick up that invincibility, and run across this part here. If you go through that network of tubes to the right or jump over the invisible pit, you'll come out further to the right and get dumped closer to those spikes, and it's actually harder to navigate it. So I prefer to just come out on the left and get the invincibility. These bubbles can be controlled with the D-pad. Up increases your speed, down will slow you down. You often have to hold down and then left or right, and that will slow your ascent and allow you to scoot along further. At the top of this ascent with the bubble, there's a crab meat badnik that's very difficult to dodge. I know he's coming. I try to get ready. He hits me every time. Here I try to go under his projectiles but don't quite make it. At least I didn't get knocked down. And at that point, I'm just happy to be on my way. No need to seek revenge. That crab there, I don't know what it is, lobster. That lobster is also very hard to dodge. I know he's coming. I just find Sonic's jumping to be less responsive underwater, and I guess you just have to press jump sooner. Okay, to get the Chaos Emerald here, it's not too tricky. When you enter that network of tubes, just hold left, and then you'll come out and get the Chaos Emerald. After you've gotten the Chaos Emerald, hold down and you can get that extra life. And then you'll come over here to the right, and this part can test whether or not you've freed yourself from attachment to outcomes, because you have to navigate this long stretch of spears and lobsters, and then a tricky part at the end with spikes, all in this bubble. To get past the spears, one thing I find helpful is to approach them and then press down on the D-pad to slow yourself. That will let the spikes or the spears launch, and then after they've gone by, you can be on your way. I kind of hang toward the center here, kind of looking left and right to see what's coming ahead of time, as well as you can with Sonic 2, that is. The main source of its difficulty is that you can't really see what's coming. But if you've developed presentience and blindsight, you'll be okay. For this part, it looks like you might be able to jump up if you lose the bubble. I haven't been able to do it. I find that going wide around those platforms with spikes works better than trying to come straight up the center where the rings are. I find if I go up the center, the bubble pops, and I have to jump all the way back down and float back up. So now we have the final act of Aqua Lake Zone. The seal. This seal is actually comically easy in the Master System version. You can stand right in front of his nose and you'll stare at each other with nothing happening, and then you just jump on him when he inflates his nose. It's pretty funny. At some point here I'll do some coverage of the Master System version. But on the Game Gear version, he is a more difficult opponent. If you stand next to him, he'll hit you with the flipper attack. So as he's expanding his nose, jump on to explode it and damage him. Move away, jump into the air, let him juggle you. Move him to the right, as he'll move to stay under you. That way, if he's on the right, you won't overshoot. The edge of the screen will keep you in line with him. And then just repeat that process until he's done. This looks easy. It does require some timing that you'll need to get a feel for. If the timing gets messed up and you lose your rhythm, it is possible to lose to this boss. It takes some practice. Okay, you know what to do here. Make sure you get some headbanging in. I'm telling you, you forget the headbanging, you don't take the time to do it, you won't meet with success at this game. Trust me, I'm your guide. I can be your teacher at this. The headbanging at the end of the zone is essential. Green Hill Zone, again, excellent music on this act. This act, the stages themselves, except for the third act, aren't too bad. They're actually fairly easy. I think this might have been meant to restock you on lives halfway through the game. And this really is your main stop to stock up on lives. Gimmick Mountain Zone, the level after this, is quite confusing to navigate. There are some extra lives, but I just find it too confusing and maze-like to really go around hunting for them. Scrambled Egg Zone is challenging because it's got all those tubes, and if you make a mistake on certain parts of the tubes, you don't get a second chance to retry. And Crystal Egg Zone is also pretty confusing and maze-like, and so this is where I really take the time to stock up on extra lives. Also, I apologize if some of the game footage is tearing or not looking quite right. I've got this in 30 frames per second. At some point here, I need to purchase some additional storage so that I can fit larger files on my computer and start doing videos at 60 frames per second instead of just 30 frames per second. I am new to this YouTube experience thing, and learning as I go. At first I thought that 30 frames per second would be sufficient, but then I look at game footage like this and I'm like, I gotta upgrade to 60 frames per second. So I apologize for that. I'm learning. So, anyways, there's a ton of rings on this level. If you go around and collect them all, you'll be able to get a couple extra lives that way. And then also, you want to try to stay on top of all of the loop-de-loops because there's a number of extra lives up there. And if you want, you could grind for lives on these acts because there's so many extra lives. You could pick up 4 or even 5 lives, lose 1, and that's still a net profit. So that is an option. If you jump quickly there, you'll be able to recover and stay on that platform and then jump up again and get on top for another extra life. Here's Act 2. Again, not particularly difficult, although that crab meat does often get me. He's right before the rings, and if you just get in the zone and crash into him, you'll lose a life. I wouldn't even try spin dashing into him, I prefer jumping over him. Sonic spin dash can be trickily implemented in this game. So as you'll see, there's a number of these ramps that you can launch Sonic off of to get on top of the loop-de-loops. Now normally, to get on top, you launch yourself off one of those ramps tucked into a ball, and Sonic will get greater speed when he does that. The trick to get the Chaos Emerald, though, is to just walk off this ramp here. So this long section with all of the trees and those badniks that teleport in, just walk off as I did. And that'll give you just the right momentum to get that spring and get the Chaos Emerald. If you come off of that ramp in a spin dash, you'll overshoot and you won't be able to get the Chaos Emerald. So you just walk off the ramp and that'll give you the right amount of momentum. Now we'll really put our freedom from attachment to outcomes to the test on Act 3 of the Green Hills Zone. You will need your best presentience and blindsight here. This will take a lot of practice to get the feel for how this network of springs works. And as you'll see, I've been playing this game for 30 years now, and I still lose lives. The trick is, jump right here, and then come down on the spring, hold right, and then you'll hit those two. Keep holding right. You'll hit this spring that's against the wall, hold left immediately. Sometimes you can get on that other spring there, other times you can't. And then about there, just past that final tree, come down on the springs. If you have too much momentum, you'll overshoot like I just did. If you don't have enough momentum, you won't make it to the next set of springs. And so it takes some practice after that jump off the ramp there to get just the right amount of momentum. And once you hit that spring on the other side of the ramp, you want to feel for where the next section is, and then get to the boss. It's hard to explain, it's difficult to put into words. You have to get a feel for it. So for this boss, when you come past the springs, be cautious not to rush right into the boss and die. Be patient after you navigate the spring part. When the screen shakes, that's when the boss is going to leave her form and you can jump on her and damage her. If you're both in your ball form, you'll get killed. When she's in a ball form, you've got to avoid her. And so as soon as she lands and the screen shakes, jump over to her. Because if you're too slow in doing that, then she'll go back into her ball form, you'll collide, and lose a life. Incidentally, I recently got a Master Gear converter and was playing the Master System version of Sonic 2 on my Game Gear, and I somehow jumped on top of that Robotnik prison pod and was bouncing up and down off of it continuously, and the level wouldn't end until I moved off of it. It was a pretty neat glitch. I've tried to do it a number of times since, but haven't been able to. Gimmick Mountain Zone is quite confusing. These flywheels take some practice. If you hold right, it'll speed up the rate at which you rotate. Holding left slows it down. You generally want to be holding right to get some momentum, and then just as he's coming around the edge, press button 1 or 2 and that will launch him into the air. These are a tricky enemy introduced on this level, these little guys in a helmet that explode. When you get close and they begin to flash, that means they're going to explode. What you want to do is jump on top of them. Now if you jump on top of them before they explode, you'll get hurt. But they'll explode just before you land, and you can land in the midst of their explosion of sparks and be okay. As you can see on the right there, there were a couple of lives on the other side of those walls. I don't remember how to get them anymore. If you know, you can let me know in the comment section. Although, to be honest, I'm not that interested. What I'm more interested in is, you know, are there other little areas in this game where little animals will pop out if you press against the monitors? And then also, it's my understanding that there's a power-up monitor in the Crystal Egg Zone that is broken. It's basically got a fuzzy static display on it, and if you pick it up, you get a continue. I seem to recall vaguely finding something like that as a kid, but as an adult I haven't hunted around enough to find any unique monitors in the Crystal Egg Zone. That would actually be something I would be curious to hear about in the comments if anybody out there knows of that sort of a secret. The red Chaos Emerald on the second act of the Gimmick Mountain Zone. This is quite tricky to find. It's not tricky to get once you know the secret to it, but you see, when you come up this ramp, you want to jump to the right and attack that badnik. And once you're there, you've already gone by that secret wall. And so you just kind of go off and do the level without really going through a secret wall that's off to the left. It's not a place that you would really jump, and that badnik there on the right is a perfect distraction to get you out of position and past the secret wall where the Chaos Emerald is. Once you go through the wall, it's just a matter of navigating some flywheels and jumps, and you pick up the red Chaos Emerald pretty easily. Take a deep breath, calm your mind, center yourself, because this is Act 3 of the Gimmick Mountain Zone. The boss is tricky, he's easy to screw up and lose a life, and if that happens, you have to navigate a really complex network of platforming challenges that requires precision. And again, because there's no rings on any of these third acts, one mistake, you have to do the whole level over. So for this first platform here, you can jump up, get the spring, ride this one. You want to hop off here. If you continue to ride that platform up, it'll push you into spikes and you'll die. Get back on, jump on this metal platform, and then you can barely see the moving platform beneath. Once it moves past, get back on that. Now don't go too fast and run right into the boss on the right there. So when that boss jumps and slams into the screen, just before he slams into the screen, you jump, you'll be able to bounce off of him, damage him, and scoot to the right. It seems as though if you damage the boss, fewer pieces of debris will come down from the sky, which makes it easier. Once those pieces of debris keep falling down, it's a lot more challenging. So what happened to me there, why I died, was I was, I guess, too far to the right, and when I landed, I wasn't bouncing off of the boss, I was landing on the floor, and I came out of my spin and lost a life. Looked like I connected to the boss, but again, one of the keys to playing Sonic 2 is don't get wrapped up in notions about whether or not this game is fair. You'll only burn yourself out trying to do that. Sonic 2 is what it is. We're here to just engage with it on its terms, rather than and force our ideas about what this game ought to be upon it. And so, if you get frustrated, if you get grumpy, take a break if you need to. That's okay. I still get frustrated playing some games, even though I try to keep my cool and be free from attachments. Sometimes I just, decide, hey, I'm not having fun right now for whatever reason. I think it's time for a break. But the key here, was that if I'd gotten grumpy about an unfair death with that boss, I might have made more mistakes navigating that section again. But instead, I just, kept my cool, and what happens. You don't have to be attached to outcomes here. That being said, please remember the headbanging at the edge of the stage. It's very important. I love how each stage has different little animals that come out of the prison pods. That's really cool. Scrambled egg zone. Oh man. So some of these tubes require a precise combination of inputs to navigate. What I find helpful in navigating the tubes is to hold the direction that I want to go and just hold that direction on the D-pad well in advance of the junction in the pipe. Because if you try to press it just as Sonic's going by, the timing on it is too tight. So if I know, okay, when I go through this pipe, I want to go left, as soon as I enter the pipe, I'm holding down left. And then once I've gone through that junction, if I know I want to be holding down, then I'm already pressing down. And so what it is there's a couple sections here where you've got to know ahead of time what the button combinations are to navigate the pipe successfully. On the first act here, if you make a mistake, it's okay because you'll just come back out in a safe spot and get to try it again. On the second act, though, there are some sections where you have to navigate pipe junctions and come out to catch platforms that are moving in a very specific, precise sequence. And if you don't do it correctly, you're dropped in a pit of spikes from which you can't escape, and you have to let Sonic die. So this sequence here, I believe, is down. Actually, I don't remember. As you can see in the footage, it takes me a couple practices, but I think it's down, right. Let's see, down, right. But here it's okay if you make some mistakes, because you'll just be dumped out at the entrance of the tubes and try again. Down, right, down, left. Yep, so there you go. When you navigate that final sequence of tubes at the end of Act 1, it's down, right, down, left. And just hold down the buttons in advance of those junctions, and that will help you. I'd say the most challenging and potentially frustrating parts of this game are the boss of Act 1, getting the Chaos Emerald on Level 2, the Bubble Ascension sequence in Act 2 of Level 3, the third act of Green Hill Zone, the third act of the Gimmick Mountain Zone. But I'd probably say of all of them, that's the most frustrating. I would give it to this act because the timing on navigating these tube junctions and catching the platform you need to catch is so precise, and it's toward the end of the act that you wind up having to do the whole thing over again. I wasn't kidding about meditating upon that Zen koan. Please do that. To really come through at the other side of this game with your sanity intact, you have to let go of your attachment to outcomes. You can't be in a hurry to get results with Sonic 2. If you do that, you'll only frustrate yourself and have a lousy time. There is a beautiful, enjoyable, well-crafted game here for you to find, but it requires a certain mindset to find it. This is a fun area with lots of rings that you can get bouncing around. I've always thought that was fun to do. And generally, if you can't pick up an extra life or two here, that's good. You want to at least be breaking even with lives, or maybe even turning a profit if you can. Because this part here coming up, it's very easy to make a mistake. Okay. So here we go. Here comes the hard part. Get on this platform, jump in the tube, catch it again. Wait till the platform has ascended almost to the tube, then come through that tube, and then you catch the platform again as it's coming up, and then you jump on that piece of grass, come over to the left. Now, to be fair and honest, I can't totally explain with words how I did that. It takes a feel. And I'm also very surprised that I did that on my first try. I'm not entirely sure how, but it'll take some practice on your part to navigate that last section there. Anyways, here's Act 3 of Scrambled Egg Zone. Not a whole lot of hazards between you and the boss on this act, but it does take a while to get up there. There's, all these tubes you got to ride through, and springs to bounce off to get all the way up to the boss. Not a whole lot of stuff that's going to kill you. Basically, this is where your freedom from attachment to outcomes will really serve you, because if you get all the way up there, you lose to the boss, and then you say, oh man, I gotta climb all this and again, this is annoying, this is a waste of my time, you're just going to aggravate yourself. And if you don't let yourself get aggravated, then there's nothing that first part of this act can do to slow you down or deter you from success. So here's Metal Sonic. Generally, the strategy I like to use with him is to try to stay above him, fight for the height, and when he comes out of his form, hit him. Now right there, I'm surprised I didn't die. He was, I guess, in a flashing invincibility frame, and that's why I didn't get killed. But, people say Sonic 2 is unfair. Sometimes its idiosyncrasies, every once in a while, will work in your favor. And so right there, I thought I would have lost a life, but I guess I didn't. Cool. So again, just keep fighting for height. You can bounce off Metal Sonic when he's in his ball form. And if you've collected the Chaos Emeralds on the other 5 acts, he'll drop this one. Headbanging there is optional. That's up to you. You can also have Sonic lift his head and look at the Chaos Emerald, and then lower his head as it falls. That's another thing you can do. So here's Crystal Egg Zone. To be honest, I'm not as familiar with this zone. I imagine there's some hidden lives, and you could pick up some more lives by getting the rings. At this point, I'm really looking to get from one end to the other. If you've played well, you should have plenty of lives for the final boss. Again, the best place to kind of grind for lives and pick them up is Green Hill Zone Acts 1 and 2. And by this point, I'm pretty well stocked on lives if I played well. And I can just focus on getting from one end of the act to the other. I will just repeat that it's my understanding through the lore of the internet that there is a glitched out power-up monitor that appears to have static in it, and that if you get it, it gives you a continue. So you can see again, I'm just looking to get through this act as quickly and efficiently as possible. The manual of Sonic 2 and Game Gear lists the Power Sneakers as an item. And I looked all over the place in this game, thoroughly combing its depths to find Power Sneakers. And it's my understanding that even though the Game Gear's manual shows the Power Sneakers as an item you can get in this game, there are no power sneakers in Sonic 2 on Game Gear. There are power sneakers in the second act of the Aqua Lake Zone of the Master System version. And actually last year, as a grown man, I bought the Master System version of Sonic 2 to try it out. And when I saw those power sneakers there, I was astonished. I couldn't believe that they actually did exist in the Master System version of Sonic 2. Now they're hidden behind a secret wall, and actually I've never got them, so that's still on my Sonic 2 to-do list. So if you know how to get them, I suppose you could leave a comment in the comment section if you want, but that might be a bit lengthy to explain. I'm just interested in secrets. I like esoteric about these games. Fun to collect, fun to share with others. So this moving flywheel part, again, this game is about letting go of your attachment to outcomes. You just kind of have to build up speed with those flywheels, get Sonic launched up, and then hope that you connect with the higher flywheel. It takes a number of tries, at least for me it does. You may notice at times I just fall silent during these video recording sessions. It's not really my aim on this channel to be loud and bombastic and flamboyant and try to garner views and subscribers through histrionic behavior. That's really not me. If I have nothing to say, I really prefer to just fall silent, return to my breath, and just be where I am. I really find video games can be a nice meditative practice. It's one of the things I enjoy about them so much. Because if you're not in the moment with Sonic the Hedgehog 2, you'll find that out pretty quick. So as soon as you fall into these pipes, you want to be holding right already. Otherwise Sonic will pop back out and get killed by all this stuff flying around. Now, I've not edited this footage. And that's done intentionally because, like I said at the beginning, part of the Sonic 2 experience of getting good at it is to just accept that you're going to lose a lot of lives in Sonic 2. And so you're going to see me lose a number of lives against this boss. And part of that is I'm figuring it out again, how to do it. I did play this game a couple times before making this video. But for the most part, I am just kind of relying on muscle memory from 30 years ago when I played this game when I was like, 8, 9, or 10. So you can see those energy things, I've always thought they look like butterflies. That energy butterfly will sometimes come around and catch you as soon as you leave the pipe. It's all flying around so fast that you can't really see it happening. And so again, we can conceptualize this as, unfair and get frustrated. We can just accept that, that's the nature of Sonic 2. Here I experiment a couple times with seeing if I can get 2 hits into Robotnik before he starts launching out all that stuff. And it's costing me lives. So this is the part of the video where I lose more lives than at any other point, and here's why. It's the end of the game. At this point, I've been drinking tea while playing. I've got to go to the bathroom. I was also thinking about maybe going for a walk. The sun was starting to shine a bit. And I was thinking, the game store couple miles away. We'll be closing in a few hours. Maybe I'd like to just wrap this up and go for a walk. You know, I'm kind of tired of playing. I got to go to the bathroom and rather go for a walk. And my impatience is the true cause of all these lost lives. But you see, the practice of mindfulness with video games is I can be aware of that, you know. And I eventually did realize that. I realized, oh man, you know, I'm losing a lot of lives. What's going on for me right now? And that's what I came up with. Oh, I'm feeling impatient. I'd like to go to the bathroom. I'd rather go for a walk. I want the game to be over with. And when I just noticed that and accepted it without struggling against it, I resolved to just be here now. And I start to turn around and I beat Robotnik. Because this, more than any other portion of the game, requires patience. First of all, to attack Robotnik, you can get one hit on him as soon as you come in the room. Don't try for two. And when you attack him, only come out of the bottom pipe. Sometimes there'll be the timing of the lightning that destroys the whole room is such that you could only get a hit in if you come out of the top pipe and then jump up, get Robotnik. Don't do that. Do what I just did there. Wait. If the timing's not right, wait. Only come out of the bottom pipe. Like some other sections of this game, success is a bit difficult to put into words. Ultimately, you know, I can show you the path to getting good at Sonic 2. It's really up to you to walk it, to quote the Matrix, if you will. And to beat this boss, you kind of get to have a feel for the timing, a feel for the muscle memory, and really, you know, put in the time with this game. The time that it asks you to put in. So I think this is the point where I finally start to be patient. One thing that's particularly tricky about this boss as well is that he takes quite a few hits. It can go wrong very easily. The slightest lapse in timing or judgment or impatience will end Sonic and you're all the way back to square one. And it takes a long time to beat, and so you can be, you know, he only needs like maybe one or two more hits to beat. And then you make a mistake and you got to do it all over again. And it's quite time consuming. And this is where our mental attitude, the zazen that we hopefully did, the sitting meditation that we hopefully did at the beginning of this, will help us. And meditating on the Zen koan at the beginning of this also can help us. Where if we're in a hurry to get results with this boss, we'll only make trouble for ourselves. The boss takes the time that it takes to beat. And there we go. We got him. Now, despite all my preaching about letting go of attachment to outcomes, one thing that always bugs me about the Sonic games is that at the end, Robotnik always gets away by outrunning Sonic on foot. Now, come on. That's some BS. Anyways, here's Tails. He's happy to be rescued. Do you know why Sonic makes that shrug gesture? It's because he has no ideas. And because he hasn't tried to impose any of his ideas on how he was going to attain victory, he was able to attain victory. I really enjoy this beat the game sequence. There have been some other brutally difficult games on the Game Gear that I did manage to beat as a kid. And as an adult I played them and I'm like, how in the world did I beat this game as a kid? Just seriously unbelievable. And I played through it again as an adult, just using save states to make it as easy for me as possible, just so I can see the end for nostalgia. And then it's just, you know, a couple of sentences or, you know, a good job text screen. And one thing I will say for Sonic 2 is that it really makes you work for the ending, but the ending is worth it. I really like this transition as they run together through the countryside back to Knothole Village and the sunsets. People complain a lot about the ending. They don't understand why Sonic is in the stars, you know. They think it means that, you know, what, did they both die? I think sometimes people just make fun of the ending because they're upset that they didn't beat it honestly, and so they're just kind of looking to displace their shame onto something else. But I really like the ending. I think that they're both in the sky because they're heroes. You know, if you get the bad ending, Tails is in the sky because he's a fallen hero. And if you get the good ending, they're both in the sky because they're living heroes, and they've become constellations as a result of their great efforts. Excellent ending. I love this game. I was so proud of that when I accomplished that, you know, as a young kid. And even as an adult, to complete this game is something to be proud of. It's something to feel good about. I enjoy easy games as well, but I definitely find there's something especially satisfying about really digging into a challenging, tough game and then just sticking with it till you come out the other side. It's not something that I seek all the time in my gaming experiences, but it's just something that I find wholesome and good for me. Anyway, if you've listened to this entire thing, thank you very much. And I hope that you've enjoyed it and found it fruitful in your video game practice. Thank you, and be well.